PowerPlayChess, brought to you in association with Kagi. Over the next couple of videos, I'd like to show you a couple of games played by our candidate's winner, Dommaraju Gukesh from India, the youngest ever winner of the candidates at 17 years old. And what I like about his play is that, incredibly, he seems so mature. Only 17, and yet he kind of plays in a very correct way. I think he's a classical player. He develops in a straightforward way. He likes the centre, and he attacks if he has a chance. And I think this game illustrates his play extremely well. So this was played in September 2022 in the Spanish League. So Gukesh is white against Gawain Jones. Now, Gawain is one of England's strongest players, rated well over 2600. So this is not an easy game at all. This is not a pushover for Gukesh. But it's incredible. He was just 16 at the time when he played this game. But, I won't say anything more. Let's have a look. I think the opening is interesting. If you're interested in a reliable variation against the Grunfeld, then you could do better than play like this. So knight f3, bishop g7. Now, of course, lots of interesting lines in the exchange variation like this, and e4 and so on, even before playing knight f3. But I wonder if Gukesh was surprised in this game, because very often Gawain plays the King's Indian. And he played very modestly with e3. But I like this. I think this is a very sound way for white to play. You know, if you set up in the centre like this, knight's in the middle, pawn centre, unpretentious, but it can't be wrong. Castles for black. And now pawn takes d5, knight takes d5, and bishop c4. So again, unpretentious development, all concentrated in the centre. It can't be wrong. So, you know, you can try and refute an opening like the Grunfeld. There are many dangerous, forcing lines you can try. Or what you could do is just say, okay, I'm going to bring my pieces out into the middle and get a decent position. That's what Gukesh does here. Bishop c4. The knight is attacked. What does black do? You basically have two choices. You can exchange on c3, as happened here, or you can put the knight back on b6. And I noticed that Pragnananda has had this as white a couple of times. I wonder if this is an Indian speciality. And then simply castles. And white plays with an isolated queen's pawn. And the bishop is on a good diagonal. This bishop can come to g5, rook e1. Decent play. You can see this knight is a little bit shut out of the game on b6. But that's another story. Knight takes c3, pawn takes c3. And c5. So it's a typical Grunfeld exchange. Black is putting some pressure here, but that d4 pawn is solidly protected. Castles from white and queen c7, so looking through at the bishop. Now there's no need to retreat. Queen e2 is a useful move, protecting the bishop and potentially making way for the rook. Knight e6, the knight has to come out. And bishop a3, so sound development from white. I do like those bishops striking through the board. b6, so very typical of what can happen in the Grunfeld. White should not take here. In fact, there's no need to take back. Black can play knight a5, and okay, the bishop should move. And very often white will exchange here, but there's decent play against these pawns, and black's bishops look absolutely fantastic, striking across the board. So instead of this, so bishop a3, b6, rook c1, very good move. Stepping out of the way of the bishop. Also protecting this pawn so that perhaps one could move this one. And it's opposite the queen. You never know when the file is going to open up. Well, it means that in such a position, you can recapture here, and then the queen is vulnerable on the open file. So this is kind of prophylaxis. Bishop b7, and one can play this in various ways. I mean, in the old days, you used to see bishop a6, which is very positional, but Gukesh just strikes forward in the center. And why not? This is classical chess. You're playing white. If you're given the chance to move forward in the center, why not? Naturally, this is not advisable because there we are. We can see the worth of the rook because this gets taken and then rook takes queen. So coming back here. In fact, Gukesh has had this before and his opponent played e6, which is reasonable. But knight a5 here from Gawain and bishop d3. As we'll see, there is potentially a problem with that knight on a5. Bishop h6, that's a little bit unusual. I have to say, not sure about that one. The rook moves to the side. But these pieces look a little bit odd. Now, white to play. What would you do if you were playing white in this position? Okay, you have a think. I'll have a drink. Cheers. White to play. d5. The time is right. If you can strike forward with this d-pawn and maintain that pawn on d5, then it's worth doing because you can see it shuts out the bishop. It also leaves this knight in a really poor position. This is a classic knights on the rim, a grim situation. e6. Now very often you might want to exchange here to damage these pawns, but it would open up the rook. So instead c4, just supporting that nice pawn in the middle. Rook c8, rook ce8, little pressure here. Okay, no problem, the queen steps to the side. f5. Well, this is typical of Gawain. He likes to stir things up and he wants to try and get these rooks going and potentially give the bishop some freedom again. I really like Gukesh's response here. You could take one of these pawns, but instead he's really calm, he's really cool. He just plays rook e1. Just saying to black, okay, do your worst here. Gawain took. And you can see after this exchange, it simply brings the bishop to a strong square, protecting that knight, so there's no danger of an exchange sacrifice. Protecting that pawn, so leaves that bishop locked in. And there's a nice battery here. You never know when there might be a chance to sacrifice. Pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, and bishop c8. So an attempt to bring this bishop into the game. And also maybe this knight. If the knight could reach d6, if you gave black 2 moves in a row and put the knight on d6, then I start to go, okay, this one's not so clear. But it's white's move. And that knight is still stuck on the edge. So white to play, what would you do here? White to play. This is a really important moment in the game. Here we go. d6. That's a great move. So often in the Grunfeld, this d-pawn is such a powerful piece. Well, if black avoids taking, for example, something like this, then rook d1, you can see how powerful that pawn can be. There's always a threat to advance, and not to mention bishop d5. So queen takes pawn played, and the follow-up is this. Very calm. See what I mean about classical chess? Everything is in the middle. And black's queen is in trouble. It doesn't really have a good square to go to. I mean, look at this kind of thing. Queen here, I think it's possible just to play that. And that's a very nasty skewer. Anyway, Queen c7. A check on d5. King h8. And bishop b2. So that was the last piece to come into play. And it does so on the long diagonal. Black has to play bishop g7. And knight g5 is absolutely crushing. He could exchange on e8 first, but this will do nicely. Bishop f5 played. And this is where Gukesh gets a bit flash. I'm sure it's not the only way to win, but it is very beautiful. Queen c3. Look at those beautiful bishops striking towards the king. So if bishop takes queen, well, the queen has to block, and then this one comes. Check. This is hopeless, and white is going to end up a rook up. So after queen c3, rook takes rook played. h6. I mean, there really is no defense for black here. It's hardly surprising. Look at white's pieces. All playing beautifully. Look at that knight. It's just a spectator. And the game finished like this. Okay, can you find the flash finish? Give me a flash finish, folks. Are you ready? Queen takes and rook e7. Oof, that's nice. So first of all, the queen is pinned. And if, let's say, oh well, yeah, queen takes bishop, then that's checkmate. That's very nice. And if pawn takes knight, okay, that's an extra rook. And this leads to mate. Rook h7 coming soon. Wow, what a crush. But, you know, when you see a position like this and you want an illustration of classical chess, well, every picture tells a story, and that's pretty good. Beautiful harmony here. So that's what I mean by classical chess, and Gukesh is an absolute maestro at the art. Okay, in the next video, I'm going to show you another game by Gukesh, our candidate's winner, and, well, it features an opening which is dear to my heart, let's put it like that. See you soon.